Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Organizing to Victory podcast, where we're talking garage politics. Today, we're inviting Stephanie Ziglar, who is a candidate running for Orange County District 3. She's super passionate about small businesses, building community, diversifying our tourism development taxes, and figuring out a way to be an inclusive and accessible leader while championing the environment. So here's my conversation with Stephanie. Everybody, we have a special guest in the house today, Stephanie Ziglar, who's running for Orange County District 3. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm very, very excited.
Well, I love to, get together, talk about things that we're passionate about, talk about our history and how it informs who we are today. And I see you everywhere, kind of talking to all different types of people. And I want to learn a little bit about you as this campaign is really blossoming and blooming, because I think you're going to be able to sell your policies and who you are. But we want to learn what the root of all of that is. So, where were you born and how did you get politically aware?
So I was born and raised in Orlando. My husband is going to laugh because I jokingly say I've been 32812 since 1982. I was born and raised, and I am from Floridians. So they grew up here as well. And my grandfather came here after the war, stationed here. And so I raised my kids here. So I'm from Orlando. I'm from District 3. And I went to high school, the same high school my dad did, same high school my son did. And I have been rooted in this community deeply. I went away briefly to go to college, but I came back and ended up getting my degree at Valencia. So that's where I'm from. And, I've loved living here. I recruited my husband from DeLand to come live here. So I'm very proud of the area I live in.
Now, DeLand is really cute.
It is gorgeous.
It's really cute.
They have a really great main street too. So,
but you came back to Orlando, and I'm so curious because Orlando, I believe, it has a lot of things on face value that people move here for. But being born, usually when you're born somewhere, you're like, oh, I can't wait to leave and never come back. But you came back.
Yeah, I went away. USF is not far. Tampa is not far, but I have always had a connection to my neighbors here. I have friends whose parents were friends with my parents, and it just felt like home. I purchased my first house in 2015, just down the road from my grandfather, purposefully. He is 101 now, and we still live down the street from each other. I visit him regularly, and my family was very, very important to me. My dad was coaching football at Boone. He'd been there for almost 30 years, 25 years. And so it just was natural to be here. And I couldn't imagine raising my children anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So that's why I came here and, came back here and stayed here. There was really ever a real desire to go anywhere else.
And so when did you decide to start becoming more politically aware and enlightened?
You'll laugh at this. In first grade, I had a great first grade teacher, Miss Kozad, and she was an environmentalist. Mm-hmm. And she taught us about the manatees. And in second grade, I put on my brownie uniform and I marched my butt up to Tallahassee and spoke to Governor Bob Martinez about increasing the number of no wake zones. Mm-hmm. And I told my parents that I wanted to be an environmentalist. And I remember jokingly, my grandfather said, be a lobbyist, you'll make more money. And I thought that was so funny. But I have always been involved in politics. I've always paid attention. I've always followed campaigns. I've always followed what was happening that directly affected me at first. And then I realized it was important what affected everyone around me. Mm-hmm. And starting to follow those things. My family was minimally politically involved. They voted, but I don't know if they voted much beyond local major elections. And but I feel like in the last 15 years, 20 years, it has become increasingly important. And I've seen my family shift. Mm-hmm. And grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles are now very involved in what's happening. And so they pay attention. We talk about it. So yeah, I mean, it was just sort of part of who I am.
Well, I can attest to that. Two things. One, she has a manatee tattoo.
I do.
So she's not lying about the fact that she loves the environment and loves the manatees. And the second thing, because you really gotta love the environment if you get a manatee tattoo, because manatees kind of just look like orbs.
Yes. Yeah.
Like little fat potatoes.
I will laugh. I say that the reason that I'm great at discussing things and going back and forth about environmental issues is because my dad would always play devil's advocate at dinner. And his favorite argument that he used to argue with me, which, you know, I realize now he was just doing in jest, but he would say to me that he wished we could hunt manatees for their steaks. He would say, look how fat they are. I bet they have lots of steaks on them.
It would be the most gristly, just chewy.
He thinks it's the funniest thing in the entire world now.
And the second reason why I know is because I have 2 giant pit bulls, and I'm usually tell guests, you know, I'm putting them away. And you were like, no, take them out unless they're going to maul my face off. I want to meet these dogs.
And even if they'd maul my face off, I would try to win them over.
I mean, that's the way I plan to go. So you're an environmentalist. That's incredible, because the whole reason why I got into this work is because the environment's never brought up on the campaign trail. And so I try to help candidates, especially those that are environmentally focused, get the word out and elevate their environmental stances, because it's just last on the campaign list.
Yeah, I had a grandfather that was involved in, he worked out at NASA during the moon rocket series. And that's where my mom grew up out there. And he was super scientific. And he used to talk to me all the time about, it is so important that you pay attention to this. It's important to pay attention to climate. And I'm talking about, this is in the 80s. Mm-hmm. He's telling me as a little girl, like, we've got to pay attention to these things. We've got to recycle. We've got to make sure that these things are paid attention to. And it just stuck with me. Like, I had a mom that recycled. I had a mom that composted. And, you know, those little things stuck with me. And now I pass them on to my kids. And, you know, we grew up on the lakes and the beach. And that's just who we are. It's just natural.
And so you grew up here. And when did you start getting involved with small businesses?
So, you know, I was raised by my dad and my stepmom, and my stepmom was an accountant, and she always worked for small businesses. She didn't work for large firms. She enjoyed being an accountant for small businesses. And she used to talk to me about how it was more interesting because it was actual people and it was actual stories, and it wasn't just numbers in a book. And I worked for small businesses. I worked, you know, I did work at a doctor's office for a while that was a larger group, but for the most part, I worked for small groups and small businesses. And I got the opportunity when I was a single mom. I got the opportunity from a friend whose kids played soccer with my son to come work for him. He was an appraiser. And he said, if you come work for me, I'll give you the opportunity. You'll have a flex schedule. You'll be able to volunteer at school. You'll be able to pick him up for soccer, all the things that I was having a hard time doing with a larger group. And so I took that job, and honestly, it shifted the course of where I was headed. And it opened the door to volunteering a lot more. And it's true. These businesses are actual people that are like making decisions on a personal level. So this was a guy that was coaching my kid's soccer team. His wife was PTA president. And he gave me a well-paying job that gave me a flex schedule so that I could be more involved with my family. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first real introduction to small business. Helped him with social media, helped him go digital, helped him with those types of things, and stayed with him for 13 years until the job opened up for the Main Street. And it was in my home, and I applied. And, you know, I wasn't 100% sure what it was, but I knew that I knew those small businesses, and I knew that I knew people well. Yeah. So I figured I could do it.
Well, you know, we're in a time right now. I wish I could clone myself sometimes, because I'm such an activist for the environment, for the homeless. But I see small businesses struggling and closing all across our area, and I know something's wrong. Yeah. But I can't quite put my finger on it, because we're being told by our government that the economy is so great.
It is an interesting thing. My husband is a small business owner himself, and he left a very large corporation that had phenomenal benefits to go out on his own. And it was super scary. And that was the first time I think that I was like, I can't imagine people that have the guts to be able to make the leap, because I wouldn't have had the guts to make the leap, but he had the guts to make the leap. And I got to watch him build that. And, you know, he literally opened his business in 2019 and then the world shut down. And he survived through that. And, you know, the resiliency and the ability for those guys that were with him, his partners, to continue to make it work was amazing to me. And that is what I am always amazed by. They can make it work, but there comes a point where if people aren't spending money, if they have so many costs and so much red tape, just like you said, you wish you could clone yourself. These business owners are working the front desk. They are making the schedule. They're doing the payroll. They are the HR. They're doing, you know, the ordering. So, I mean, there comes a point where they just cannot replicate themselves enough to be able to manage all of the things that are coming at them. And it becomes more lucrative or easier to go to another company or to not run that business. And with rising rents, sometimes that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and they just let it go. And it's heartbreaking.
Well, I mean, when I see, and I'm so glad that you're a voice of that entire arc, when I see a business open and close, open and close, open and close in like a brick and mortar.
Yes.
I drive by many here in the Lee Road area. Yeah. This area is really not financially, you know, it's one of the more areas where people are struggling. And I see these restaurants and small businesses open and close so frequently that there's jokes on our next door that the locations are cursed.
Yeah.
But, you know, I know we're going to talk about infrastructure. One thing I look at is, well, it's really freaking hard to turn into the business because it's on a main thoroughfare where people are flying
100%
way above the freaking, you know, even if I was curious, just a passerby and I wanted to just turn, like people are riding up my butt on the road. So I can't even just pull in to see what they're offering because I'm scared to make that turn.
And imagine how much signs cost so much money. So to have a really good sign is very, very expensive and costs a lot in permitting fees and a lot in approvals. So maybe they don't have great signage, or maybe their signage is lost in some of that zoning allowances. Like they allow for so much different things that it gets just kind of lost in translation. And they're spread so thin, they're likely not on social media. They're likely not taking advantage of what is considered free marketing. But it's just they probably were, I can cook this really well. I can make this dish really well. I can run a restaurant, but there's just so many other components that come into it. And if they have a landlord that's not keeping up that property and they're having to fix their AC or they're having to fix their plumbing all the time, it's just, it's insurmountable.
But then what happened? So are those families just completely bankrupt?
Sometimes. We saw a lot of businesses that struggled after COVID that took out small business loans they were on adjustable rates, and those rates ballooned, and we did not recover as quickly as they led us to believe we were recovering business wise. I mean, I still have businesses that have never recovered back to the numbers that they were at pre-COVID. And you know, they become desperate. It is a dream. That's the part too. There's all this emotional tie to these businesses. This is something that they imagined in their hearts and in their minds, and they built it from the ground up. And so they become desperate and they take out loans, or they mortgage their home, or they leverage another job. They're working a second job on top of running a business. And there's a statistic that the average business owner doesn't take a paycheck for the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And most of our businesses are not making it that far. And it's heartbreaking because you know that, you know, they're losing it financially and they'll likely be able to rebound. We see business owners rebound other places, or they move, they go away, they go somewhere else. They take a job out at the parks. They take a job at a local restaurant, you know, doing what they did, but it's just not their own anymore.
Well, you know, we had Hammered Lamb close.
Yeah.
And because of significant amounts of construction that was happening outside. And I remember seeing a post from the owner, Jason, that they were doing the best ever the year before the construction started.
Yep.
But that makes me feel like there's a policy issue, because where are the safety nets?
So, this is where I have been super proud of the work my colleagues in the Main Streets have done. When you watch, so often there is this disconnect. A lot of those buildings are city buildings, and they're located on a state road, and there is no conversation about what's coming, and they will literally come to work and there will be the road torn up in front of them. Soto saw it happen. Down on Robinson, they saw it happen. It was just plaguing these businesses. And there is no opportunity for them to plan. There is no opportunity for them to, come up with some alternative. And we found in the city, especially, there was really no idea how to manage that. And the city did some things. They put, social media. There were commissioners that pushed stuff out. But for the most part, if that construction is there and there is no consideration given to those businesses and there is no way to reimburse them, then they will be harmed massively. And and timelines are never real. They just come and come and come. And, the ones on Robinson, I was very impressed because those businesses worked together collectively to try to come up with solutions and creative ways to get people in the door and show people where parking was and things like that. So, but that is another level of work that these people are doing now to protect this dream that they have.
Yeah.
And, you're not seeing that happen in front of Publix in reality. You're not seeing that happen in front of these large businesses. And I think that there is a disregard sometimes for these small mom and pops. A delay on a small mom and pop is going to be catastrophic as compared to a large business that's bringing in millions a year.
Well, I see it as an opportunity to look at our tourism development tax, for example, and say, how can we create an emergency fund? Because tourists go to these restaurants and these businesses as well. I don't think that we should continue to allow the market to just regulate itself without realizing that the social fabric of our community lies in the hands of our small businesses.
What I try to emphasize to people a lot is that when a business closes in a space, it is a visible hole, but it is also a whole to the community. So that ripples through in all of the neighborhood groups. You hear it, people will talk about it. What happened to this? Like you mentioned, is this place cursed? Is it deterring people then from coming back to those places? So it is, sort of like that pebble in the water. It ripples out and it has these effects. One of the things that I feel like on the state level, communication honestly would have been massive for these people. Just a level of communication, sticking to a timeline, and there being some retribution when there is not a timeline that is stuck to. I don't think that that's just never in anyone's mind. And I will acknowledge that the city did go, okay, we've got to figure something out. And they tried here and there. But this is a nationwide problem too. When we go to Main Street conferences, you're hearing businesses talk about this a lot. And so there is a complete lack of regard for small businesses and the negative effects it has on small businesses when we do this infrastructure work. Mm-hmm. And we see it everywhere. You tear up a street and people can't get to it, and that business is gone in 2 months.
So are you technically like a small business lobby as a Main Streets? Because you can't really afford to retain a lobbyist, right?
So we're independent nonprofits. And, there's a national program and we're accredited through that national program, but we are independent 501c3s. And we are lobbying on the most micro of levels, right? We are reaching out to our commissioners directly. We are reaching out to, luckily, we have really great state legislators that are accessible. Not everyone has that, but we, reach out to them. There was a bill they were pushing through this year that was going to reimburse businesses that had to be shut down due to construction issues. That did not make it through. We're hoping to see that move through again. But, we just sort of champion these businesses. But I will tell you, every person that I watched, all those directors that championed those businesses that were struggling, they cared about those businesses deeply. They cared about those people. Like, it wasn't just our jobs. It was, we were so sad to see those businesses close. So yes, I guess I would consider us more advocates and cheerleaders for these businesses and a voice. We definitely just amplify the voices of those businesses. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing on that level. I mean, gosh, I wish we could afford lobbying. But it's just what we do day to day. So that I think that we're lobbying the most is just our local people, anyone that'll listen to us.
Yeah, I think it was now Senator Smith and I think Rep. Escamani, they both did a joint bill to try and create state relief for businesses that were impacted by, infrastructure improvements.
And honestly, a lot of it was a result of watching what happened in Ivanhoe, what happened in Milk District, what happened in Soto, watching all of that happen. But our infrastructure is so stressed as it is. This is going to continue to be an issue. I mean, I knock on wood every chance I get because it has not hit my main street yet, but it will. It's coming. And that's terrifying. It's terrifying because I know what a shoestring these businesses are on. I know that it's just a thread holding them on. And it could be, catastrophic to an entire community.
Mm-hmm. Well, right now, the Board of County Commission is looking at an audit of some of the resources of our TDT given to Visit Orlando in just 1 year. I think it was over $3 million of, I can't say, Phil Diamond told me not to say misappropriated, but to say misclassified dollars. My thing is that, there's such a wealth of funding coming in from tourism, from the theme park industry, and a tax like a tourism development tax should really be a joint opportunity where private and public relations come together and say, how can we ensure the greatest return? And you don't put all your eggs in one basket for the greatest return, right?
So, when it comes to those TDT dollars, and we've been heavy on the diversifying the uses of them. I don't necessarily believe that we should increase the TDT rate. I don't necessarily think that we should add additional fees.
Like the TTT?
Yeah.
We're talking about the Frank Santos.
Yeah.
The 2 pennies.
The 2 pennies.
Sales tax on, and just transportation.
I have been amazed, and I think that it's from nonprofit work and working with small businesses at how far a dollar can go with a small business. And when I'm talking about TDT dollars, I'm talking about a fraction of what we're allocating towards marketing, going towards our communities and supporting these communities. We're about to do a ton of work on Camping World Stadium. And there are a massive amount of small businesses that surround Camping World Stadium that rely upon our large venue events for some of their side business, for some of their income. So what happens to those businesses while we're doing the work on that? They've come to rely upon, EDC being there. We have large events there regularly. And if we have to pause that while we do the expansion, what happens to them? Could money that we have in TDT dollars be allocated to uplift those businesses for a brief period of time? Even if it went towards transportation, my gosh, parking during construction is such a hassle. But if transportation, micro transportation was, made accessible and available, people could access that and take a shuttle into Ivanhoe, take a shuttle into the Milk District, take a shuttle, versus having to compete with parking. There's just really creative and easy ways that you can uplift some of these corridors in their moments of challenge. A very, very small percentage of those TDT dollars could make a massive impact on. We collected the most TDT dollars that we've ever collected in the 24-25 year.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to spend more money on marketing? Like that just becomes ridiculous.
I totally agree with you, but I'm just going to try to get into the practicality of it, because targeted marketing in the right time for the right businesses makes sense. Like if some people are watching this and they're like, well, I don't think it's fair if a small business gets a micro grant just because they rely on the Camping World Stadium. And if the Camping World Stadium is undergoing massive renovations and it's closed, that they get a micro grant while I'm over here in a main thoroughfare and I'm not getting a micro grant just because I'm not experiencing like construction or anything like that. Okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about, instead of, allowing Visit Orlando to put money into reserves that they're collecting interest that's going into a general fund that's not monitored, maybe we make sure that those dollars are, going into targeted marketing for businesses that we know are going to experience lulls of business, like they did for one of the people that they had come and speak to the commission, Maxine from Maxine's on Shine. She talked about how there were very specific months where they were experiencing lulls, and they had hired, Visit Orlando had hired some social media influencers to come. And all of a sudden they started, I think they got some billboards and some other targeted ads, but they ended up getting some like international business during their slowest months. And it was like one of the success stories that they attest to. But the percentage in which those targeted marketing, that's basically the root of this audit that's happening, is the percentage in which that targeted marketing is happening for small businesses, I believe, is way too low, and instead has likely been subsidizing some of the bigger players in our industry that could afford that marketing without using private or public dollars.
And let me add, Maxine's story is a great story. Maxine is a paid member. Yeah. She pays to be a member of Visit Orlando. So that access is not across the board. So those dollars are going into marketing that are being targeted to people that are also paying back into that organization.
I see.
So there is a part that feels ick about that, right? Like it's not just, additionally, as Main Streets, we pay to be members. So we're also paying for this targeted marketing that the tax dollars are paying for this marketing. So, there's this double dip. And, again, the targeted marketing can be a very small amount. And it has a massive, just a few international people that come in, a few influencers that come in, it does blow up quickly. We see it all the time.
Yeah.
So, there is the ability, I think, when it comes to those dollars, right now, your hands are tied. There is literally nothing, other than arguing about we should be able to do this, use this money for other things. But in other places, in other counties, they use these dollars to work on infrastructure that affects our tourism. Yep. They use these dollars to keep up our parks, keep up our beaches, waterways, things like that. So, it is being used, these tax dollars, these tourism tax dollars are being used in other places for other things. And, I think that we just have become so narrow-minded here, and it's unfortunately likely because we have such large tourism draws that aren't necessarily our normal economic corridors.
Well, I love the fact that an audit is happening and that these conversations are happening, because I think there's an opportunity, right? Trust me, I am such a crazy activist. Sometimes I get blinded by my own rage and I'm defund Visit Orlando. But it's actually Commissioner Simrad that was like, we're lucky to have a major marketing institution like Visit Orlando. The problem is the when, the how, and the why. What's the return? What's the data? She's a very data-centric person, being an economist. And that brings me to say that I believe Visit Orlando, if they were challenged to be more strategic with the dollars through this auditing process, the benefit of that outcome could be a greater return on more marketing and more diversification to make sure that all of the businesses in our local economy get to tap in and not just the biggest players?
I also think that like the press that they've had recently has been rough. And, they are incredibly smart in their targeting. They have a ton of data and incredibly smart people that work for them that know what they're doing. And, honestly could do amazing things for, if they can do amazing things for the city as a whole, the county as a whole, imagine what they could do on a smaller level. But, I think that it's just, if they made an effort to, we talk about unbelievably real, that's one of their taglines. If you really saw some of the things that are happening here in Orlando, you really saw some of these spaces, saw some of these events that we have that don't necessarily classify as tourism events, but are bringing in 7,000 to 10,000 people and are generating, $200,000 to $500,000 for the local economy. How is that not, beneficial? How is that not something we should also be investing in on that level? So I think that, Visit Orlando does some really great things, and they are an asset to our town. I just think that, when you've got so much money going to one organization, you would just like to see it benefit the people that live here day in and day out and have called this place home for a long time and are literally sweat equity every single day.
And I don't think every penny that we have, and I'm not saying that it is, but a huge majority of money that we have is going to just Visit Orlando. Yeah, there 40%. Are other local firms that I think we could also share some, trickle some of the, we could even do some of it in-house at the county as well.
I mean, the county offers, they just rolled out their dashboard for business, so businesses can get open. But I mean, the National Entrepreneur Center is a really great resource that we use a lot in Main Streets. And those are resources that could benefit from some dollars. And, as you said, on the county level, just being able to dole it out internally, there are economic corridors and opportunity corridors that have been identified by the county. And, but that requires those people to apply for those things. It requires them to know that exists and go and apply for it. Imagine if your municipality was reaching out to you based off of your business tax receipt and saying to you like, hey, these are the resources that we have available to you. Like, how about we get you this connection, or how about we refer you to this, or whatever. When you apply for a business tax receipt, could you sit down for a class, a Zoom call where they tell you everything that's available to you? I think that so often businesses are so caught up in their opening and their soft opening and their ordering and their all the things that they don't even know what's available to them. And could we utilize those funds to do more and reach more people?
Absolutely. Well, you brought up infrastructure quite a bit, and right now Orange County is in a little bit of a crisis. I mean, our entire state is in a little bit of a crisis. And I think it's because of the mistakes that were made since before you and I were even born, where, people didn't really come to Florida until the air conditioner was invented. And then as soon as that innovation took place, people flocked so quickly to Florida that the land that was being utilized was kind of taken for granted, I believe. How we develop our communities would just seem like there was an endless surplus of land. And because of that, we have a lot of failing infrastructure and a lot of sprawl. I would say that's probably one of the top things you hear at the doors.
Yeah. People are, the first thing that comes with all of this sprawl is like traffic, right? So people are unhappy about traffic. And we are post-war, we, had a lot of people that settled here. We had bases here. So they came and they stayed in Orlando, and we were really propping up, how great it was to have cars. We have these giant shopping plazas. There's many along Edgewater Drive here. So, I mean, these plazas that have this massive amount of parking in front of them. And then, there was just no real thought to what's this going to look like in 50, 60 years? What are we going to do with this in 50, 60 years? And then we built neighborhoods. We just kept building neighborhoods, kept pushing neighborhoods further and further out. And, I will say that I felt like there was a stall for a bit, and then we picked right back up. And, we talk about our infrastructure being stretched to the max. And that's the thing. We delayed doing infrastructure upgrades for so long. And now you've got all of these. It's trying to do more work, and it's failing. Infrastructure is failing. We have floods that we didn't have before, neighborhoods flooding that never flooded before. And, people will say, oh, it's always flooded. I've lived here a long time. No, it didn't. It didn't flood. It didn't flood like that.
I'm in an older neighborhood, and the flooding, I lead some community meetings to help facilitate relationships with the county and with the neighborhood. People who have lived here since before I was around are saying that this is the first time they've ever seen anything like this. And it's like 4 feet deep from just like a tropical storm in their house that they now have to pay, usually out of pocket, because they either A, didn't have flood insurance, or B, their insurance company is just fighting them tooth and nail, and they still need a place to live. So if they rip out all the drywall, they have to redo the electrical, and they're taking on that financial burden, and then the next hurricane comes.
Yep. And there's never really a solution. There's never, it's like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. And we just keep doing it over and over again. That's the part that's surprising to me, as we watch more and more and more houses be built. We had that stall after the market crashed in 2008, and there were all these vacant neighborhoods that had the infrastructure put in, but didn't have houses yet. And I remember thinking, what's going to happen here? Like what? And then it exploded. And those houses got developed really quickly, and people got in those houses very quickly. And we saw strain on everything. We saw strains on our schools. We saw strains on our roads. We saw strains on our fire departments and our police. I mean, Orlando is an hour from Orlando, we joke about, right?
Yeah.
OPD is responding, 45, 50 minutes away from another location that's also Orlando. So
with a deficit of staff.
Yeah. And a strain on this staff. And we have such a unique corridor because we have county really intermingled in with different municipalities. I think we have 13 independent municipalities in Orange County, and maybe more than that. But, just in my district alone, there are 3, 4. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at all these different municipalities who are also relying sometimes on them. On their own, if they don't create their own police. But yeah, it's stretching us to the max. And as you have to handle things that are further and further away, you're neglecting those things that have existed for a long time and are in place.
I mean, it's $25 million per mile of every new road.
Yeah.
And we have the pedestrian fatality capital of the United States for a reason. It's because we don't have the funding to invest in the infrastructure that's pedestrian first. And people love Europe. They love going to Europe. And I think it's because like those cities and communities were designed first before cars because they're older communities.
Talk to me about the infrastructure. I jokingly refer to like out at Disney, like people can walk at Disney. It is walkable. It is walkable. It is safe. They have a bus system that runs efficiently, that is larger than our bus system. I mean, like it's doable. But it costs money. And, instead of investing in things like that, we're focusing on other things. And, it's an interesting place to be in because, you have some communities that aren't really being affected by it much. And so they're quiet about it, or they think it's silly, or they don't. But it's not long before it will affect them. It's not long before they will feel the effects of these things as well.
Well, I look at the quality of life here, and I look at what people are going through. We have homeless teachers. We have homeless firefighters. Like that's a policy decision.
Yeah.
If we have 10,000 children in our Orange County public schools that are homeless, some of which are living in tents out in the woods.
Yeah.
That is a reflection of our decisions. And I'm assuming that's why you're running for District 3.
It is. And I will tell you, I think that one of the main reasons, outside of the small business side, I watch everyday people pick up the pieces and manage the failing infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, I mean parks, I mean roads, I mean, schools, all of the things that make it livable. I watch my neighbors, everyday people, pick up those pieces and try to bridge the gap. And that's not fair. I'm watching them run businesses and try to make their neighborhoods better and their families' lives better. But at the same time, teachers are funding homeless students having Uber because they're so far away now because they're on somebody else's couch. I'm watching teachers, that are helping other teachers who are struggling. I'm watching, soccer coaches who are also in law enforcement and the fire department. They're moving farther and farther away because it's not feasible to live in the town that they're saving and protecting every single day. Mm-hmm. And when I see my neighbors picking up those pieces, when I see my small businesses paying a living wage, increasing the living wage because they know, and I'm seeing large businesses not do it, that's not fair. That's just not. And I honestly was like, okay, well, somebody has to do something or say something or be the person that's been in it. Like there's lots of people. This race has a ton of people running in it. And some of those people have decades of governmental experience. But I've been in it with the people, talking to them every single day that are dealing with that system, that are dealing with that governmental side, and watched them pick up the pieces that they got neglected on. And I just decided that's really not going to work for me anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, District 3 in particular, I think I'm the least familiar with District 3 out of all the districts. So I went driving in District 3 not too long ago. And now I've lived in District 2 for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's because of redistricting, I'm now in District 7. But driving up to like Apopka and some of the areas that are like on the border of it being rural, but these really older communities, I expect the farming areas like Apopka to have some areas that are a little bit blighted.
Yep.
Going into District 3, you would expect, since it's like in the urban core, for it to be more built up, more investment, because it's kind of closer to jobs and economic opportunity than like Zellwood.
100%.
Right? But wow, I was so surprised going into Pine Castle and further south.
Pine Castle. Yeah.
And it's historic areas, but I saw so many closed down businesses. I saw so many boarded up areas and just frankly, a lot of sprawl. I didn't see families walking around as much. And I just thought to myself, like, if we're going to invest anywhere, it should be here.
So District 3 is probably the densest district, right? And we are smack dab in the urban core. And it is honestly, it's the birthplace of our county and our community in reality. So that is where, Orlando's right, the downtown Orlando is right on the cusp of a couple districts there. But that is, and District 3 houses, our base, that we had that was, the home for so many people and for a long time. And, there is, I think, honestly, there was a disconnect in zoning and allowances, and we let so much stuff just kind of go wild. And you've got in areas, Goldenrod 50, you have heavy industrial next to residential.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? And now, you are looking at heavy industrial is likely a good place to put something like a homeless shelter. But then you have families that are in these neighborhoods that are embedded in these communities that are like, well, hey, what about us? With no regard for them, no question to them. It's needed, but it's also needed to talk to those people. Mm-hmm. But we forget about these communities that are old communities. Taft is a really great one, mm-hmm. that are in the center, and what happened is industrial built around them. Yeah. And they get lost. They're like these donut holes, and they are these communities that get sometimes lost and neglected and blighted. And, people leave there, businesses leave there and go either further downtown or go to somewhere that's trendier. When Lake Nona was coming up, when all of that was being built out there, people were going, this is going to be the new hotspot, right? And So people left and went out that way thinking that was going to be the new hot spot. That was going to be, and yes, it's popular and it's great, but it left holes in the community that was there. And we don't uplift entrepreneurs, unfortunately. So people are hesitant to start their own businesses.
I mean, if they could afford to go. I mean, like Nona is not necessarily a easy leap from a Pine Castle area or a Taft area.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was a point there when it was. And our market has like exploded.
Yeah.
But there was a point where it was feasible to those commercial rents were feasible to move that way. But what we've seen now is just this disconnect.
Oh, yeah. I could never, ever, ever imagine. Like I'm gripping on to this house, and this house was falling apart the second I moved in. But like, I cannot believe like how expensive some of the homes that are being built are. And I'm like, for who? And
I will argue too, like, people hate change, but I am big on we need infill, right? Mm-hmm. But when I say we need infill, I'm not talking about you tearing down 3 bungalows and building a mansion. Mm-hmm. That's not the infill I'm speaking to. And we see that very often because there is still charm to some of these communities that people want to be in. But now you've got $1 million home surrounded by normal concrete block Florida houses. Like it doesn't make sense. It's not helpful. And now you've taken up 3 spaces, right? You've taken up 3 lots for one home. That's not creating more housing. That's not creating more density. That's just building a mansion, right?
It's removing housing.
It's removing houses.
I mean, I love, so I started the nonprofit that I worked in for 10 years, Fleet Farming and Ideas for Us, in someone's house in Audubon Park.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago now. And that is happening to Audubon Park. Every time I drive through to check on some of the little farms that we had there, I'm seeing like historic homes that were probably built in like the 40s, leveled for, like you said, like almost 0 lot line, giant mansions that are the size of like NASA's space station.
Yes, but that's that planning side, right? So now you've got, and you'll watch often, they will be unincorporated Orange County in my community. And they will get annexed.
Yep.
They will pay to be annexed because they know that they'll have a better chance of getting that allowance within, the city. But then and in my Main Street district alone, I will have city directly across the street from county, which leads to so much confusion on so many levels. But like that is, I mean, you're seeing this. When there's this disparity between what is allowed in these different places, you are going to end up with these areas that just don't match. And you are going to end up with these areas that struggle because, if you've got $1 million house sitting across the street from you, the developers are coming for you next.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to be getting calls nonstop.
Yes.
But I love the idea of like that same lot having like a little duplex built in the back and having their, son or daughter be able to live there after college, or a mother-in-law suite. Like
multi-generational is a fabulous option.
I am so much more about that because right now, a lot of my neighbors, I live in a single family residential area. I can tell that there's maybe 3 or 4 families all living in one.
Yeah. And
yet they're living on these like acre lots that I can tell they don't use their lawns.
So there's programming right now that have pre-plans that have been pre-approved that you can do ADUs or accessory dwelling units right on the back of your house in some of our municipalities. If you use one of their plans, it's essentially almost automatically approved. Mm-hmm. And that's a great, great opportunity for that density, for that infill. But what we're seeing, though, is people are getting those ADUs and then they're making them Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Or they're not renting them to locals. They're, using them for workspaces. We will see that happen. Mm-hmm. And, that sort of defeats the entire purpose. And, but it's a step to allow for people to have ADUs. I was excited to see that opportunity, especially multi-generational we're going to see more and more people doing that.
So something I want to ask you about infrastructure. So you're running in what was or is until she drops out is Myra Uribe's district.
Yes.
And I actually was tabling at an event once, and one of her residents came to me and said, "Oh, I love Myra because she votes down every apartment in our area because our flooding is so bad."
Yep.
And that really angered me, but then also made me realize that this is a real world sentiment that must be organized so loudly that it would cause a commissioner to vote against things that would help their own district, like infill. And it's so common. But in my head, like we talked about sprawl, if we're sucking resources out of our urban core to create new infrastructure from zero and leveling our trees, then we're taking away the funding mechanism to fix some of those flooding challenges.
Yeah. And that sentiment of apartments, there is a stigma for sure, which is crazy because of how expensive apartments are in Orlando, in all honesty. But I will tell you that growing up in Conway, growing up in that area, there was this perception about apartment dwellers for a long time. And until the market crashed in 2008 and people were driven out of their homes because of foreclosure and into some of these apartments, then I saw a bit of a shift, right? Then I saw people change their tone a bit about what they thought about people that were, and we see it, people say the same thing about renters. I think that there is this, if we just vote all of this down and I just say no and I make this black and white statement, and I am notoriously black and white sometimes, but when you make this black and white statement about no on everything and people perceive that you're going to be no on everything, then what do you do when you have to be yes? Because now they think that you've caved, right? Instead of just viewing each situation for each situation and asking for an environmental study or asking for flood data, getting that information. If you just blanket say no, then you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. It's just, I get it. Your constituents may think, I don't want any apartments near me, but then they also don't want, their infrastructure to be spread thin. And I think sometimes there is a education side that needs to happen that doesn't happen.
Commissioners need to be educators.
Yes.
I don't know if every commissioner sees that as part of their role, but in my head, if you're going to get 200 people angry with pitchforks at a community meeting, that's a failure on the work that you could have done leading up to that community meeting so that people could have felt more confident. I mean, you're not going to make everybody happy, and some people are just going to be mad just because they're mad. But people want transit. But if we don't have the density, we can't afford it.
Right.
Without taxing you.
And so this is a funny story, but it's my husband will say, this is what's going to end your campaign. They tried a bike study, a bike lane in my Main Street. This was before I was Main Street director. They tried a bike lane. And the people that did it are reputable transportation people, okay? And they put a single bike lane in our Main Street. And we were a brand new baby Main Street, but they put a single bike lane in. You would have thought they took everyone's cars away. You would have thought that they stole their keys and said, get on a bike. And people were so angry. They were so angry. And that study did not last 30 days. They pulled it in under 30 days. That's not enough time to know anything. That's not enough time for anyone to make any adaptations to anything. That's not enough time for people to pull off the roads and go to a different route. That's not enough time for any sort of data. And I remember saying to people like, what did you know about this study? What did you know was coming? And they said, well, they just told us it was coming. And I wish that they had been educated on what the purpose is, what this is going to look like. We treat voters like they're dumb, and they are not. People are not dumb. And they want to be told what's happening. They want to know exactly what's going on. They want to know where their money's going. They want to know how much this is costing them. They want to know what the end result could look like. And I look at that study and I joke all the time. When I interviewed for the job, they said, what's one thing you'd like to do in this Main Street? And I said, bring back the bike lanes. And then I chuckled because their faces were just full panic. And I said, I'm just kidding. But, I felt very strongly that there should have been more time on that. Was it the right thing for that area? Maybe not. I don't know, because there was not enough time given to it. And the residents were not educated enough on it and not told enough about it to be able to understand what the purpose was.
People don't like change in general.
No.
But you know how we always say, like, not one more student should be shot in school? And we need policy to ensure that not one more life is taken. Why do we not look at the policy shifts as a community for pedestrian safety infrastructure the same way? Because kids are dying.
Yeah.
People are getting hit just from biking and having someone open their door.
Yes.
Because there's not enough safety provisions.
I also believe that a lot of it is education early. So I may not be able to grab these residents that have lived here for 65 years, right? Lived in their house for 1,000,000 years. They may not get it. They may not understand it. But if we start educating in the schools on the on the elementary level, on the middle school level, we start incentivizing bike riding and walking to school, or even carpooling.
Yeah.
Then it plants the seed early on. And I feel like when you start talking about, anything early on, you start educating early on about the benefits, or just giving them the opportunity to see like where there could be benefits and where there could be downfalls, but give them the ability to like navigate, when we put in a traffic study, what is it that maybe we are looking at for that? And when we want people to bike, we're not saying that cars are bad. We're just giving you other options. And I think that early education, it sounds insane, but like the white, there's a organization, is it Walk, Bike, Run, one of that we have worked with for bike safety with our local community center. Kids love it. They eat it up. I mean, it instantly made my daughter want to ride her bike everywhere. She's like, can we ride our bike to Publix? Can we ride our bike to Twisty Treat? Can we ride our bike to Charlie's?
Well, there's data to prove that there's economic returns. I mean, the home values have increased in areas where trails that were like significantly protected were put in, and it helps the local businesses. It's an economic driver that we just don't educate people that would bring opportunity into their area. But I think also how you run a commissioner's office can be up to you as a commissioner. And I remember working with Nicole Wilson, for example. I would have to, not that like she made me, but it was like instinctual for me, like find those community leaders that have the most trusted voice.
Yes.
And like go in on a Sunday, even on my day off, and like have coffee with them in a intersection that they have been complaining about, and like listen to all their gripes, and be able to also say, well, we got this grant to put in a bike trail over here, and it doesn't always work, because even if they're a community spokesperson, the community could be up in arms.
Yes.
But because we had those relationships in different parts of the district, when people showed up with pitchforks to one community meeting, Commissioner Wilson would be able to be like, well, if you guys don't want it, I know another community that just had a 15-year-old killed that wants this bike lane. So if you don't want it, I'm bringing it over there.
Right.
And people were like, oh, okay.
There is, every community has their voices. Every business communities, economic corridors, apartments, condos, neighborhoods, they have their people that are invested, that are entrenched in it. And if you can speak to those voices and speak to those people and get them to trust that you're just trying to get them the information, and I'm not looking for you to persuade one way or the other. I'm looking for you to inform and empower them to be able to inform. You will see more and more people understand and get on board. Those community groups, when somebody can get into a community group and explain a processes, I'm always amazed at people that will jump the gun on stuff and make comments about stuff and have no idea the process. I saw a comment today about, well, they don't have the money for that, but they have the money for this park. First off, totally different municipality. Second, the money's coming from a private source.
Oh, I saw that with the animal shelter.
And like, where do you get this from? So the thing is, my husband will laugh. I used to be the person that would come in and say, well, blah, 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 blah. And the amount of people that would be like, wrong. And I'd be like, what? But I tried. And I think that exactly what you said. When you start talking to those voices, when you start reaching out to those people and making those connections, your neighborhood watch people, your community association people, your faith leaders, and you have these conversations with them, they are in turn having those conversations with the people that trust them tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Well, a county commissioner, there's a vast range of things that county commissioners can actually do. But most of the time, county commissioners are told it's a part-time job. As long as you get in there on Tuesday to vote, that's your role. And for someone with an activist spirit, someone who doesn't know how to turn my computer off, that really frustrates me because I'm so hungry for justice and I'm so hungry for change that if I were a county commissioner, I would want to figure out every way to optimize every leverage of soft and hard power that I had to be accessible and to change policy, but to also do the holistic things like food drives and pantry drives and all the things. How you run your office, what would you do that would make you maybe more accessible or more policy driven? Like, how would you design your county commission office?
I can't speak necessarily like that I have a full knowledge of how the current commissioner is running her office completely. She is embedded in her community and people love her very much. Mm-hmm. So she's done the work somewhere along the way that people are proud of. But if it is a so-called part-time job, then there is ample opportunity to be extremely present in other organizations and in other aspects. We're about to close down schools in our district.
Yeah. That
should be a face and a presence at those school board meetings to hear about those things, to know what's going on with them. County commissioners, when it comes to, if it's so-called part-time, then there is so many things that you can be present at to listen to people, to hear the actual voices versus, just someone told me or my aide told me, or, I can say that I've had in the past had businesses that were struggling with a unique perspective, a unique challenge. It would have meant the world to them to have direct contact with their leader, their representative, at their place of business to look at what the challenges that they're experiencing.
Yeah.
And I have always come from a place of show it to me, like meeting them where they're at, show me what the challenge is, because hearing it over the phone or reading it in email isn't necessarily going to give me the big picture. So sitting down in your coffee shop that's struggling, that gives me a bigger picture of what your challenge is.
Hosting a meet and greet so that you bring a bunch of people there when they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
And just driving the attention there, it all really helps. You just have to be forward thinking enough.
I've also found this massive disconnect between municipalities where you will hear them say, well, that's not us, that's them. Mm-hmm. And I hate that. I mean, the last thing you want when you go to a restaurant and your meal comes out wrong is for your server to say, well, that's not my fault. Like, I get it. It's not your fault. I know that it's coming from somewhere else, but can you help me navigate this?
I know. We had an individual who was basically in the city of Orlando. When I say when I was working with Commissioner Kelly Martinez-Semrad, we had an individual who was basically like $500 short on their rent. And had an incident with medication something happened, and everyone was like, oh, well, because it's the city of Orlando, that's not our jurisdiction. Yeah. And I just called every number I could find at the county and bothered people and was like, we can't pull $500. Like, I'm about to go and give this man $500 if you guys can't. And they were like, no, we found a small relief fund. But it's like, I'm not going to sit and I know he was calling the city commissioners and wasn't getting a response. I'm not going to sit and just say, well, that's not my jurisdiction,
My argument with that is, if it's not your jurisdiction, why did they vote for you? Mm-hmm. If you have no value to them, if you have no purpose to them, why are they voting for you? Why is it important for our city of Edgewood, city of Belle Isle, city of Orlando people to vote for our county commissioners if in their time of need, you're not available to them? Mm-hmm. Because in all actuality, I mean, when a business opens in the city of Orlando, they also have to pull a business tax receipt in the county. So, I mean, like, we have an obligation to them regardless of their municipality. And also, there's a purpose in us having relationships. You're telling me that a commissioner can't pick up a phone and call another commissioner in the city and say, I got this guy and he's having a hard time and he's located in your district. Is there some way we can work together? I mean, could they have split that 50-50? Mm-hmm. So there's those types of conversations that I think I see it a lot. I see that, well, that's not us a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I would argue, is most of our problem.
Well, the biggest shift should be the fact that we just had this redistricting process. With the whole conversation, I voted against it personally, and I'll talk about why. But the whole conversation was about reducing the workload of the county commissioners. As someone who did constituent services for over 5 years, it's not too much for a county commission office of like sometimes 3 to 5 people to handle, in my opinion, especially when you have municipalities where some of the weight is shared by, utility. If it's not your waste management, it's the city of Orlando's, then that is a call you have to direct. But we redistricted to go from like 260,000 people and shed off about 70,000 people from that workload. Mm-hmm. I was against it because I felt like we were already going to go through a redistricting process, I think in 2030, and we needed the census data, which the 2020 census data was way off. Yep. And with 1,500 people moving here every single week, I felt like we're just going to have to go through this whole thing again, which is a very expensive, rigorous process. And as an activist, the outside ability to flip votes is already so hard. Yeah. And to have 2 more people who could potentially be plugins from the special industries, it's 2 more people you have to try to convince. And if the money is like it always is in campaigns, 4-1, then you have typically more people you have to beg to hear you, even if you get 100 people to show up at the county commission. So I was against it, but the idea of reducing the number of people so you can be more hands-on, more accessible, and way deeper in the community sounded like a pretty plan that we were sold to get it passed. I hope in fruition that does happen, because if we can take money out of the equation and get real leaders, real grassroots leaders who were born and bred in their districts wanting to give back, who are not just going to open the doors for the developers and the tourism industry, but are going to also sit down with the small struggling businesses and the community leaders, then it will work out for us in the long run in a better way.
I would argue too that, and I hear this, and I've only been knocking doors, for a few weeks. We've only had 3 canvases and so far, but and I am hitting an area that is right now, and it's probably just to boost me up, right? But predominantly Democrats, but it is a new part of my district. So it is a space that we gained, and the amount of people that are like, "What are you talking about?" is shocking. They don't know. Shocking to me. And so I would argue, so often, right? We wanted to make this smaller so we had less constituents, so we could be better. They don't know that you're not their person. They don't know that they need to be calling someone else. And I feel like as a public servant, you have an obligation to get them to where they need to go. The amount of people that call me about things that for my job that I can't do anything about. Mm-hmm. I don't have the ability to fix the problem they're having. But what I can do is figure out at least the steps they need to take. And I can call someone that might know. And
you should have been a lobbyist. Then they call you and they could pay you to go and lobby for their needs.
Oh my gosh. My husband would be so happy. You work in nonprofit. That's a pile of gold there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm excited to learn about your campaign more and what you're fighting for. It sounds like tell us about your top 3 issues.
I think I like to talk about connected communities. My favorite statistic is that almost 40% of my business owners live within a mile of their business. And that's echoed in a lot of other main streets, and in a lot of other areas. So when you are visiting these small businesses and you are, ordering a coffee and you're paying for your coffee and you're tipping them, that money's going back into our community. There is a statistic that for every $1 you spend in a small business, 68 cents ends up back into that community. Mm-hmm. And so there is this interconnection, and it's this beautiful circle where you're spending money there and these people are going back and spending money on paying for soccer practice. Yeah. And that soccer is happening at the county park, and that county park is getting utilized by those people, and it's, nearby. But when you make those parks less accessible, when you have traffic on the road, mm-hmm. when rents go up, you are literally severing off the food chain. Like, you're severing off the life cycle of this entire community.
And economy.
And so I look at that as an interconnected part that is important to me. When I say I want to invest in small businesses, I want to protect small businesses, it's because I want to protect the neighborhoods that they're in. And that is that infrastructure I talk about. I want to make sure that they have parks. I want to make sure they have programming. I want to make sure they have a library that is accessible to them. Not every place has an easy library to get to. Mm-hmm. And that opens the door when we have public schools that are banning books and making things harder for students. Sometimes a public library is a refuge for them. Mm-hmm. And having a library that offers programming that's in areas, even if it's temporary, part-time, that's huge for communities, especially seniors and people that don't have vehicles. And then lastly is our environment. It ties into the sprawl. It ties into smart development. I'm not anti-growth, but my goodness, we have got to stop with the rapid, no thought growth.
Yep.
And it's harming our waterways. I am a lake girl. I love me some Lake Conway. I love the beaches, but I grew up on Lake Conway, and, we are watching the lake heights challenged with, and we're watching bigger houses go onto these lakes. These were communities that had tiny bungalows on them. And now we've built massive houses on these same spots. That is, we may not see it now because it just happened, but I know it's coming down the pipeline that there's going to be challenges with that. There's going to be issues. And I just am tired of us paving over every blade of grass. Mm-hmm. And green space is welcomed. We have a park in our district that they are looking to put a 20,000 square foot community center in. But it is one of the last spaces in our district that is wide open green space.
And how many empty warehouses or dead plazas are there?
Yeah. And, the argument is people want this. Survey was from 2016.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're 10 years out on this. And I'm not saying no, I'm not saying that people might not say yes, but when it is the last green space we have, when you can see the lake and you can see the trees and you can go to that park and in one sitting identify 25, 30 species of birds, then you're going to put a giant building in a parking lot and you're going to say it's for the community. I'm not really sure if that's really what's in the best interest of everyone.
There might be alternatives too.
100%.
Sometimes people advocate for things because they're so starved for those safety net resources and those after school programs to make sure their kids stay out of trouble. But that specific park is only probably being proposed because it's cheaper than, revitalizing an empty building.
Yeah.
So there might be other options that it's really on the commissioner to have a holistic approach on how they would select a project or take county resources to buy and replenish, revitalize a specific project. But I definitely am curious about right now, the county commission is going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to be an overwhelming change. In those top 3 issues, what do you think really sets you apart from your other opponents in terms of your expertise and what you want to do, where you want to go?
I think that what sets me apart a lot of our commissioners in the past have not spoke heavily on the environmental side to the local level. They look at it as, yes, we should recycle. Yes, we should compost. Yes, we should put solar on all the things. But it's so much more than that. And when we talk about the environmental impact, you're talking about also development in it. And development becomes a bad word and people get afraid to say the word development. But we're not talking about all development, and I'm speaking to those communities that are like, I love my neighborhood and I'm afraid that more of these giant houses are going to come in and, I love my neighborhood. I don't want my, the last pasture across the street from us to be eaten up by these tilt wall buildings that have nothing in them for decades, and so I often want to speak to, we're building things with nothing in them. They're just sitting empty. And so, we can speak to, maybe we need to look at, are we doing this, approving these developments smartly? How quickly are they going to develop them? How quickly do they have somebody coming into them? And the other part is small business. It's easy to say small business, but I'm not talking about just like, oh, I love small businesses. I'm talking about uplifting these small businesses and really having an economic, an economy that's thriving, that is neighborhood centric. I mean, when you have thriving neighborhood centric communities, like it uplifts the entire area. Your real estate goes up. People are buying houses there. The schools are better. They're investing in their schools there. It is a trickle. I hate saying trickle down, but it really is a trickle down when it comes to that economy. It's more honestly of a flood
like
out.
A trickle out. Yeah. Well, I'll say I live in an area where there's probably 7 auto dealerships, like used car dealerships by me. And I never see people going there.
Yeah.
I don't really know if they're front businesses or what, but I'm like, why do I live near so many of these auto dealerships that, I don't see a ton of people working there ever, maybe one guy, I don't know. It's just, I get to a place where I was just at Disney Springs with Commissioner Sumrad and she taught me about leakage effect because I was like, all these businesses, I've never heard of them anywhere else. I've never seen them anywhere else. Are they local? And she said, no, what it is these are high rate leases that go to international businesses that are usually conglomerate businesses that, they're hiring in the local economy, usually very, very cheap or exploited labor, but the profit margins and the reinvestments go to the primary company that's managing and owning them, which means they're pulling money out of the economy, leaking money out. Whereas a small local business, usually they're buying local, they're distributing local. All of the chains in the supply are typically as close to local as possible, so the money stays within our local economy.
And so a lot of businesses, especially service industry businesses, are being propositioned on a regular basis to be purchased up by these businesses like that. And it is so lucrative to them to sell. When it comes to electricians, veterinarians, opticians or ophthalmology offices, doctors' offices, dentists, they get bought up and then they are no longer a local business. And that money is not staying locally. And they usually turn over all of their staff and they're hiring at a lower rate. And when I talk about uplifting these small businesses and protecting these small businesses, that's the thing that I would like to protect them from. I want these businesses to stay open. I have legacy businesses that have been open 50, 60, 70 years. That is a hard thing to do this day and age. And I want to continue that trend.
I mean, we're seeing legacy businesses close all over the place. It's really, really heartbreaking. Some places that have been around for 40 years, like Tanqueries, just closed.
Downtown is really struggling. And it is, that is a multifaceted problem. And it's devastating to watch some of these places that I went to in my younger days disappear. And it's, and those business owners that have, invested a lot of time and money into those businesses just throw their hands up and say no more. And that's another part where they are just not getting the support that they need, unfortunately.
Well, it all also ties back, it's interthreaded with transportation.
Yeah.
Because I was just in Berlin, Germany, and I thought it was so many light bulbs were going off because they designed their infrastructure and their tourism cores around the transportation.
Yeah.
So every time you got out of a metro or off the bus, there was like a Christmas market.
Yeah.
There was museums. You're walking literally into where you're about to go. And it wasn't like you had to then take an Uber. Like if you get off the Sunrail, typically you have to take an Uber or something to get to your next destination. And the way it was designed is it's opening up directly into where you're trying to go.
So, I mean, that's that smart planning too, right? That's that holistic look at what you're doing with what you're doing, right? So you're building the Sunrail, you're putting a train in, what is around it? What is going to be near it that is going to benefit from it? Now, we have some businesses that benefit tremendously from it. And we see it. Park Avenue is a really great location. Excuse me. A really great location that has an easy off and an easy into their community. And actually going towards Seminole County, you're seeing that as well. But we just don't have it here. And that is because there was not smart planning to start with, right? Like in the beginning, there was not, when that was put there, when that decision was made to have that there was no forethought into, what should we put in place that makes this usable and makes this desirable to be used? Mm-hmm. When I was canvassing 2 weeks ago, I had a lady stop me who said, I don't think people know where Sunrail can take them. I have no idea. I don't think they just know. Yeah. And she said, could we start running ads that talk about the places that Sunrail goes? And I started thinking, and I was like, I don't know all the places Sunrail goes. Had I not gone into Mayor's Academy and taken the Sunrail, and I don't know if I would have known all the places Sunrail goes. So, I mean, there is this holistic look at the things that we put in place and the infrastructure that we create to make things more livable that requires every level to be looked at: neighborhoods, businesses, industrial corporations, schools, all of it, looking at how is this going to benefit all of them or most of them.
Mm-hmm. Are you for the transportation sales tax, or how do you feel about it?
I always wonder if there are other places that money can come from to take care of those things. I was listening to your podcast with Eric Gray, and he was talking about how 70% of the ridership on Lynx buses is tourism related, but they're workers. They're not tourists, right? So we've got all of this industry in this area that is utilizing our infrastructure, and there is no reinvestment into that infrastructure. Could we be getting this money somewhere else? We joked once on the Sunrail that why couldn't we put a sponsorship on the side of this? Yeah. And that's the Main Street thought, like, who could sponsor this?
Or even the bus. I think about the bus shelters.
Yes.
In other cities, you have a map for tourists to know, and there's like a little help center if you need questions. There's like a little speaker box. There's ads.
When we were in Philadelphia, they had speaker boxes that you could press, and it would get you to someone that could tell you where to go. Like, how to grab the next bus, how to grab the next whatever.
But like, people are getting rained on. Like there's such a lack of bus shelters. I'm like, that's something TDT could fund.
Yes. And bus shelters are expensive. I looked at putting bus shelters in my district, working with Lynx to just have bus shelters put in, because I primarily wanted to brand them. Yeah. But I mean, that is the other thing, right? Like, we have these giant corporations. They're making so much money. Brand it. I don't care if it is a Disney bus stop.
It's infrastructure.
Please. It's infrastructure, and it's benefiting the people that live here.
And I don't know how much those conversations are had, because I think there's animosity when you start to question the tourism industry. I think immediately there's a little bit of a hesitation to collaborate, because I think they're really trying to make sure that they're hoarding every dollar, every dime. But if, even Commissioner Sumrad showed them, like, you can get more of a return the more dollars you put out in these things. I've never been to Disney that I can recall, probably when I was very small, but I don't recall. And I mean, Epcot, I've gone to Epcot, but Disney has many parks I've never been to. if there was a train that was easy to just get on and go, and I didn't have to deal with the parking there, and I didn't have to spend $35 for parking, and I didn't have to walk like 2 miles to get to the park from the parking, and I just got off the train and was just like entering the park, I would do it. I would do it.
But talk to me about how people have no issue paying the $35 to park, no issue taking trains or buses to get to their destination, and have no issue walking 2 miles to get to where they finally are going. In that scenario, could we shift the mindset a bit? I mean, like, we're not asking people to walk 2 miles here. We're asking you to park half a mile away and walk in. We're offering the parking for free. Like, I think that we believe that people will not be willing to do the things sometimes, and they are willing to do the things.
I think that if we had a transit sales tax specifically for transit, and we did not allow roads, period.
No roads.
Because people are so burnt out by adding another lane. I think, like you said, voters are very intelligent.
Yeah.
I think if we could prove to the public that those dollars would be invested in connectivity and it would take cars off the road, which would be a long-term cost savings because the maintenance would, the strain of the maintenance would be alleviated. And frankly, if 1,500 people are moving here every single week, there's going to be a breaking point if we don't have, like, there's going to be, it's not that necessarily there's congestion that's being relinquished or taken down. It's more like we're combating the additional strain that's coming from the future people moving here.
I also argue 1,500 people are coming from somewhere, and a lot of the places they're coming from are places that have mass transit.
Yeah.
So this is not going to be a concept that is foreign to them. This is a concept that they will have understood from somewhere else. It is funny, the micro transportation, transit. I mean, within our economic development corridors, we as Main Streets are looking at financing and coming up with the funding to pay for shuttle service to run on the weekends, and what that would look like, so that we can run shuttle service to our different Main Streets to give people access to our different small businesses on the weekend. And we are building it into our budget. We're pricing it out. I mean, this is nonprofits working to find a way to get people moved from point A to point B in an effective, cost-effective way. And people eat it up. They love it.
I hate parking. Most of the reasons why I don't go out, honestly, I'll tell you, so many times I've left the house and just come back in because I'm just like, I cannot even build the emotional capacity to have to deal with looking for parking.
Yeah. So if I don't know what I'm getting into, especially if it's a garage, no, it panics me. It panics me. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am again. So
I used to park downtown under I-4.
Yeah.
And that would be my just go-to because I could always find a spot. But that was over a decade ago. And I just, at this point, and downtown has suffered a lot since then when I used to go my clubbing days. All those clubs and all those places, they're all gone. Yeah,
they're all gone. And my husband will laugh because I'll be like, I'll just pay for valet. Because it is easier for me to understand it sometimes. Yeah. But, it is. But I think that I was talking to somebody recently who has parking issues in there, and they asked me how somebody else does it that doesn't have any parking. Yeah, and I said they just accept that they don't have parking, and they tell their people, I don't have parking, and people figure it out.
I love daydreaming about this. Like, I could imagine going to like Mills 50, just being on a little trolley and going up and down and partying up and down at Will's Pub.
We just did the Merry Mobile, and we did it on Small Business Saturday, and we bussed people around all of the main streets.
Oh, I would love that, because last night I went to a friend's house, and after I was like, I just need to listen to some live music. I'm going to go to Will's.
Oh, yeah.
I drove by, and the parking situation was such a nightmare. I went home.
So I think that, when you ask what will set me apart, I think that when you have spent time in nonprofit work, and you've spent time as a volunteer, and you've spent time crunching numbers and finding and scraping dollars to make things be what you want them to be, make them be pretty, make them be safe, make them be whatever it is. When you've spent so many years doing that, I think that really makes you do harder work. Like it makes you look for, I will tell you in my campaign, I'm like, where are my 3 quotes?
Yeah.
Like, because it is foreign to me now to not have to find all of the options. What are all of the options that are available? And I think that that's one of the things that we sometimes lose. Our commissioners get set in their ways. They do the same thing over and over again. They become loyal to a particular section. They just don't look at all of the options all of the time.
Yeah.
And, I said to someone the other day, our municipalities have a habit of coming from a place of no versus a place of maybe, or a place of
be creative.
Yeah. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And I think that when you shift to that, it changes the entire narrative.
Yeah. Working in Orange County, a lot of the staff don't really love me because I'll just keep asking the question in different ways.
Yes.
Because I'm like, you're not helping paint a picture for me to see how this is possible. You're just telling me all the ways it's not possible.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stop until I figure out a way. So you help me figure out how we can get it done. Every guest near the end of the podcast, I ask them, what is something you do to replenish yourself when you're go, go, go all the time? What is something you do to like spiritually pick yourself back up and give yourself energy to take on the next day?
This is going to sound so insane and it's such a millennial thing. My husband and I are birders. He bought me a camera, early on in our relationship, and we have upgraded our camera time and time again. And I love identifying birds. I love feeding my birds, sitting in my driveway, my backyard, wherever, and, seeing birds and calling my husband and being like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what I just saw. And using the Merlin app, which identifies birds and keeps my life list. And I find great comfort in enjoying that with him and then sharing that with other people. Because if you're out somewhere and you're like, you hear a bird and you're like, oh, that's a bluebird. Where there's a bluebird somewhere nearby. People are like, what? But they love it. So like
I love talking to birds.
Yeah. I talk to animals any chance I get.
But yeah, that is so cool because birding is like one of what people don't talk about. It's like one of the biggest economic drivers to Florida.
So yeah, I mean, like we get in our car, we drive to different places and we, with our binoculars and our camera, and we go and look for birds. Winter is great in Florida because birds are here. But it is something that I didn't know that I would enjoy as much as I enjoy. And so when I have an opportunity to sit and watch, honestly, and just listen and watch and absorb, that is my favorite. Yeah.
I mean, we have the Apopka, like Lake Apopka Trail. Yes. We have the Orlando Wetlands Park.
Orlando Wetlands Park is fabulous.
I went there. I was for a tour and I was like, oh my God, those, the pink spoonbills.
Oh yeah. The Rosetta spoonbills.
I've never seen those.
Yes.
Until recently. And I was like, oh my God, these are real.
The last time we were there were white pelicans there, that were in the process of their migration and they had stopped in and it was fabulous. But I will tell you, go to your regular park, Lake Underhill. I was at Lake Underhill 2 weeks ago, and logged 12 different species of birds. Your local parks have so much wildlife.
Refuge.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making this time to be with me and to talk birds.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're going to need a bird tattoo.
I feel like I might. I appreciate you having me on. I'm a yapper and, opportunities to yap, especially about things I care about are great.
Well, it replenishes me to be able to talk to people about policy and get to the root of their why. Can you plug some of the ways that people can get involved with you?
Yeah. So I am on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And it's at Vote Ziglar. And my website is voteziglar.com. Oh, yeah, there's me. And, right. VoteZiglar.com. And, yeah, so those are all the ways. And, on my website, you can sign up for, me to come chat with you. I will come chat all day long. And
you can go birding with her.
You can go birding with me.
You can buy some of her photographs for a donation. Auction.
Is that a thing? We're going to need to talk about that.
No, you could do it. But August 18th of this year is the primary. So I really want to make sure that, people are aware that there's going to be a primary election and then the general is in November. And if you're feeling like the federal level is spinning out of control and you can't pay attention to politics, please, please, please don't shut off our local candidates because they need help. And frankly, they are directly connected to the decision-making process that happens for the things that are occurring right outside your door.
The biggest change is on your own block. It's easy to make a change.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, and have a wonderful day, y'all. We'll see you at the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you heard today, please comment, subscribe, and share. And